Hayden here at 500 Doors Real Estate, because behind not every door is an opportunity and a human being that we're here to serve on our amazing real estate podcast. Now, our next upcoming guest, you're probably going to think once you hear him start talking that I invited him just for his awesome accent. However, I do want to get a bit of an idea as to what's going on globally. So before we get started, I want to invite any new real estate agents out there or agents who are struggling and you're trying to figure out how to make this business work. First of all, I want to tell you, you can do it. You can do it. If you're struggling or you're just starting out, all the opportunities and possibilities are there. You can join me at 500-doors.com, and I'm happy to share some insight of how I built a 6- and 7-figure income of just being an amazing community leader. So let's dive in today. Super excited here. I have this incredible man that is going to join and share all of his insight on development in England. This is going to be so cool. Alfred Dzadey comes from a background of, get this, aerospace engineering and project management at Jaguar Land Rover. I'm thinking there's like a lot of mechanical. He must like to build stuff. He is leveraging his management and solution-oriented skills as a property investor and developer based in the West Midlands of England. He established Real Property Ventures in 2008 and 18 with the ambition to provide great accommodations at affordable prices. Real Property Ventures has been investing in the UK property market for the last 2 and some years and have been involved in multiple projects ranging in complexity. Get this, and we're taking it, folks, take it to account. We're dealing with COVID and all this other stuff. He even won the New Property Investor of the Year Award in 2021, awarded by the Property Investors Awards Association. Now, he is working with known industry mentors, coaches, and training programs. Alfred has the insight and knowledge of property investment and development strategies. And because of that, he is currently a finalist for this year's Great British Entrepreneur Awards for the category of Young Entrepreneur of the Year 2022 in the West Midlands region. This is pretty cool, folks, because you know what? When people step up to the plate, a lot can happen. Welcome to the show, Alfred. How are you doing?
I am good, Kim. I'm good, Kim. Thanks for the intro as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. I love the whole aerospace, as I mentioned before the show. Being from Kansas, I have been around a lot of plane. The funniest thing is one of my mom's friends is virtually blind, legally blind, and he actually designs cogs for a Boeing airplane. Don't even go there. He's got this big mouth. He's an engineer and he lost his sight over years, but not his talent. So anything's possible, folks, if you want to do it. Right, Alfred?
100% agree with that.
Okay. So share with me a little bit. Give me a rundown, because we got the high view of who you are. So give me a rundown as to who you are.
Yeah, so I'm a property investor slash business owner as well. So at the moment, what I'm known for is in the property industry is someone who's come out of the corporate world not long ago and has gone on to build a portfolio in the UK. And this consists of mainly something we call HMOs. So it's basically shared living. So it would be a building where we convert it into multiple units. This could be 6 to 8 units per building. And then we rent that out to either students or young professionals. And we've had great success doing that. And the way I've been able to scale so rapidly as well is by using my network. So I've built a great social media following, documenting my journey, the good and bad, showing the project updates. And that's attracted investors who wanted to work with me on a loan base, so debt-based financing. And that's allowing me to be able to raise capital and do more deals and turn them around and pay my investors back. So it's working really well. And then more recently as well, kind of got into acquisition of businesses as well. So that's something I'm venturing into. So a lot is going on. A lot has kind of happened in the last 2.5 years. And this all kind of, I guess, accelerated due to me losing my job due to COVID, because I was a project manager working on future projects. And the company took the direction of, well, we don't know what's happening with this whole COVID situation, so we're going to have to terminate contracts until further notice. And literally, I took the decisions of, do I go back into trying to find another job in such a hard time, or focus on something that I prior to that, I guess, invested into, start to learn, get educated in that space. And I was confident enough that, like, look, I've got the information. I'm already in a project that I'm doing and delivering on. Let's just go in 100% with this and make it work. And for me, it's worked out all fine. I've come out the other end and it's all great. And now I'm just looking to scale and do bigger things and do bigger projects and get into bigger things as well.
Okay, before we go into the nitty gritty on some of the projects you're actually doing, I want to jump back to a couple things you said real quick. Network to net worth, right? You talked about your network, leaning into your network to fund up. And leaning in full time in something that you weren't sure because the world was unsure, right? A lot of real estate agents or agents, they're floundering, right? So in North America, 87% of agents will actually fail within 36 months. They will be out of the business. And a lot of that's because they're not leaning into their network, right? And they're not leaning in full time into developing up their skill set. What's some of the things that you took to your network when you said, hey, by the way, I'm not over here, and I know we're in the midst of a pandemic, but by the way, I think I got something. What's some of that dialogue that you had with that network?
So I literally just, I kept it simple. I didn't complicate things. I just literally documented what I was up to. So obviously with a lot of eyeballs during that time when COVID happened, I just started to do a lot of Instagram lives. So I was very active on Instagram, YouTube, any platform I can get my hands on where I can kind of set a time and get people to come on, ask questions. Because again, I was sharing a lot of value. So again, I was showing my expertise in terms of what I know. And people are coming on there kind of wanting to get into property or learn about property investment, how to raise finance. Because I've raised up to date, I think, of 1.8 million so far. And this has come through like work colleagues, social media. So I've heavily leveraged my social media following to kind of attract them to kind of, one, get to know me, get to like me, and over time get to trust me as well. I know that I'm a safe pair of hands. So for me, anybody listening, like social media, if you haven't tapped into it, you want to literally explore that, because the way I see it is you can get a wider audience as opposed to trying to do things one-to-one. Like I know some agents that have sold houses through, whether it's TikTok, whether it's through Instagram, creating a great video, marketing a home that someone wants to buy. And off the back of the video they've seen, they're like, yeah, like, I want to buy this property. So social media is definitely an untapped resource, I think.
You just mentioned one of my favorite phrases of all time, no like trust. Bob Burg wrote the book, The Go Giver, and he talks about the no like trust principle of gaining people's. How do you do that through social media?
Frequency, being consistent, appearing up all the time, and as well as transparency. So frequency, transparency are the two. And if some investors even told me this, the reason why we invested with you is because we like your transparency. You show the hard times, you show the good times. You're not just showing, because again, on social media, you can just kind of glorify the great stuff. But when you're going through like hard times, or a project isn't going to plan, it's being delayed, cost of material going up, whatever it is, just documenting that and also showing that you can overcome the problems. And I think that's probably the selling point. So stating a problem is one thing, but actually showing that you can overcome the problem. Again, through consistency, me documenting the stuff, people over time build trust in the brand and my personal brand, I guess. So yeah.
Okay, you just mentioned the cost of product going up, let's tackle that. Let's go into your what you do. So you're building this. We're dealing with COVID, right? Getting people to work. It seems to be a real challenge now globally. Go back to work. And the fact that we are going through inflation that we haven't seen since the early 80s, right? How do you navigate? How do you develop something? How do you go to your investors and say, I need X amount of dollars, and then go back and realize that in the time between the time you started that project to the time that you're about ready to put the doors on, that project has escalated in cost. You can't get the staff. Talk to me about the actual day-to-day of what you're doing and how you're navigating that.
Yeah, so obviously inflation is a big thing. Anyone in the development world, property development world, is fully aware, like cost of materials shooting up like crazy. I guess there's a number of things I've tried to mitigate as best as possible. Like, so for example, obviously we do high-end accommodation for young professionals or students. So we don't want to compromise on our interior design and kind of going a bit above board in terms of what we're putting out as a final product. So we're in a way, we're absorbing the cost and kind of looking for a higher valuation on the back end. So prior to us even starting the works, what normally happens is we get a surveyor who comes out who says what the property's worth today, how much we think we're going to spend, versus as well what it's going to be worth in the back end. So the value who comes out, we try and get the same person to come back out on the back end of the deal. So they obviously know what's going on in the market. They understand that rent. So I think what's helped, type of deals I do, I value the property based on a commercial basis, which is basically due to its rent. What's the rent it achieves? And generally speaking, rents have gone up since even COVID times. So the end valuation of the buildings have kind of stacked up still. So we haven't got to a position where we've committed to doing a deal and the numbers haven't moved from where we thought when we started the works. So generally speaking, it's kind of, it obviously hasn't compensated fully, but it's better than what we anticipated when we first started. So I haven't got any horror stories where I've said like, oh, build costs have gone skyrocketed and the end valuation is not making sense anymore and potentially the deal doesn't work anymore. So in my case, I've been fortunate. I haven't had any of those horror stories. It's worked out great. Because of the back end, we've had the higher rents being achieved and there's still demand like never. Like this is probably the more demand for rentals than ever. So it's working out okay, I would say.
And with that, okay, so with housing costs going up, and I know that England in general, when we look at London, we know London ranks, Toronto's expensive and New York is expensive and London is expensive. And, Sydney's expensive. We look at major markets, but when we pull out of those markets in, looking at basically secondary markets, what is the kind of the price range that your product that you build comes in at?
Yeah, so rents varies. So basically what we build out is we either build out studio rooms, so within some flats, studio rooms, or like they're like called double ensuite rooms. So like it's unless I guess your audience are mostly US, but it's basically a house share. So we have a large communal area where it's got a kitchen and a what's called a lounge area as well. Then there will be 6 to 8 rooms within the property, which all share that facility and also got some amenities in their rooms as well. So the studios obviously have some sort of kitchenette facility within that room as well. And that can range, I'm in the Midlands, so we're not as pricey as London. London, everything's about like £1,000 plus in rental. Depending where you are in the city, it could be £2,000, £3,000, £4,000 even in rental. But I'm more like the mid-range. So it's around 600 to about 800 pounds in rental per door, if you want to call it that.
Per door,
that's kind of that's the general rate you'd get in rental at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds about in line with where Canada's at in most of our major cities also, in any kind of shared facilities. You had mentioned, affordable housing. I want to go down the rabbit hole a bit. So and this is going to be totally off mark, so nobody is allowed to hold poor Alfred to the feet to the fire on this, but I love to explore this question with a lot of people in the industry. coming out of COVID, it's estimated that nearly 30% of people will not return to traditional workspace. That means we're going to have leftover office space sitting empty. What do you think are some opportunities as a developer that we could go in and leverage those leftover? How difficult is it to take a commercial space and turn it into a residential space? Zoning aside, we're not looking at zoning, but we're just talking about logistics.
Yeah, so in the UK, the government has actually made it more possible for us as developers to go and take office and convert them into residential units. So in the UK, we have permitted development rights to find a building which is office use, and so you kind of have a prior approval to convert. You have to still submit an application to the council to get them to approve it, but there's actually more incentives. So the government has made it, because they know, like you said, based on what's happening in offices, they've made it more accessible to developers to be able to go out and request to convert a office to a residential unit. I'm actually doing a project where we're converting an office to 4 flats, so 2 2-bedroom flats and 2 1-bedroom flats. That's actually my next project. So that's—
And how difficult is that when we're looking at bathrooms and kitchens and laundry facilities? How difficult is that to reutilize a space that never had that and wasn't developed that in its intended use?
Yeah, everyone that does flat conversions from offices. So yeah, it's a problem. Obviously, in terms of the infrastructure doesn't exist already, so you're pretty much having to bring everything in. Even you might have to contact your utilities in terms of like electrics. So if you're splitting the meters across the multiple units, you might have to call the main contractor to come out. That could take time as well, and because they're trying to manage their workload, that everyone complains about that being a problem. You could be waiting 3 months, whatever, a few months just to get someone on site to allow you access to be able to start doing electrics in terms of each individual unit. So those things are a problem. But I think it's people that are going into the space obviously are aware of this and should be kind of planning ahead of installing these things in. So you want to make in contact with the suppliers as soon as possible to start giving you access to allow you to do your job and not delay things. So if you kind of wait to the time when you need to do it and you request it, then you've got like a 3 to 4 month lag of them coming out, which can impact the project, obviously. So I think everyone's aware, like, you need to be planning these things ahead of time. But it is a nuisance, but it's normal, I guess, in my world anyways.
Yeah, I'm thinking that we're going to see this in a lot of major cities. I know Calgary, so Calgary, where I'm at, has been in a recession since 2015. In fact, in 2017, we had a very, very underperforming real estate market. And because of that, we have millions. We actually have like a 30-story building downtown that's almost like 90% vacant, just sitting there. Right. And it's costing— what people don't realize is that when you have vacancies in your core area or your office area, that money comes back, and we have to, as residents within the surrounding area, we're offsetting the cost of those taxes that are not being collected and all these other things. So getting those properties repurposed and utilized where they're needed is important, especially when you're looking for affordable housing options. How affordable is it to convert an office building into an apartment?
Obviously, with the current costs shooting up, it's obviously— so let's say I would say since COVID, it'd probably be a 20, well, depending on material, but I think average wise, you're still looking at a 15 to 20% increase in material costs easily, if not even more, depending again on how high end you go in. The how more high end you go in, I would say upwards of 30% increase on that material cost. So yeah, the cost of converting these buildings, and again, depending on what type of building it is, the more infrastructure change that's required, the more cost you're going to have to spend to convert it into a residential home. But generally speaking, everyone is seeing cost increases, but we're also seeing on the back end of the valuation of the buildings, it kind of matching up. So it's kind of still worth the spend at the moment anyways. But there's obviously talks about potentially a dip or flattening of the curve or the house prices. So if you're banking, so if developers, the risk is obviously if you're developing a property and that dip happens whilst you're developing, then obviously you exit them, you exit those deals at whatever market that is, and obviously you still spend extra money on the material. So that's the worry. So the sooner, everyone's trying to get in and out of projects as soon as possible, to not have to see that impact.
It's crucial when the markets, when the production markets are so fluid in their pricing, when things are going up and down as quickly as they are, to get a project done as quickly as possible. With that being said, where is England sitting? So in the United States, they're estimated 4 million homes short. They do not have the short supply of 4 million properties for affordable housing. Where is England sitting within that?
I think we're like 350,000. So obviously, US is like US. Okay, yeah, I think you guys are 400 million. We are 40 million. So we're 10% of you guys, pretty much. So in terms of stats, so we're I think last stats was 328,000 homes short. But it's an increasing demand every single year. We're needing more and more homes. So that's kind of short at the moment.
And what is your theory around where all these people came from during COVID? Because I have my own theories, but everybody keeps asking, how are we short? Now, in the United States, those who have been in real estate for a long time know that this is something that's been very quietly discussed in the industry for a long time, saying we don't have enough to meet demand, and it will be a big issue in that issue. And I don't know if it was COVID that created that, but when you're looking in England, what are some of the contributing factors you think to that short supply and high demand?
It depends where you look. Some areas obviously have more sorted issues. So like London, obviously there's nowhere to build pretty much. Everywhere's occupied. As you come out, there's more greener areas. So the government they're aware of the issue, and obviously a lot of frustration from developers as well. You're not giving us permission as well to allow us to build on the site, on the land that's available as well. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. But I also do think that when the houses are getting so expensive, people can't actually even afford to buy these homes. So that's one element as well. So like, it's even if we did build these houses, who is buying them first of all? That's why for me, I strongly believe in the rental market. I'm not one to buy houses and sell, or buy a house, develop and sell it on. I'm one that retains. I'm in the rental market pretty much. I believe that the rental market is going to grow and grow and grow, because build costs, the cost of a house, the cost of building it versus what it needs to be worth for it to still stack for the developer, and then sell it on to someone, the end user, it's not stacking up. The average salary in London is like 30 grand. And to buy an average house, it's, let's say 500 grand minimum is what an average house in London costs. To be able to earn enough to be able to buy such a house, you're looking at 100 grand salary. Hardly anybody earns 100 grand in London. So how can you afford a 500 grand property? And that's like the cheap end. It's upwards of there. Do you know what I mean? So it's affordability. There's so many factors to it. So it's a problem, but at the same time, there's stuff that's stopping us being able to fix the problem, if that makes sense.
Now, there's other opportunities, though, of investing in real estate. And one of them is to invest in a company who's developing real estate. So real estate, I don't think the world is cut and dry where everybody works one job and you retire at 60. And, the world is no longer black and white in the sense of you do this, you do that, you get this, you get that, right? It's now, how is it fluid and what are the options and opportunities? And I talk a lot around REITs, real estate investment trusts, right? Or the, opportunities to invest in new developments. If somebody wanted to have an opportunity for that return in real estate, but not necessarily own their own individual home, what are some of the ways that they can invest in the market there in the development of real estate?
Yeah, so there's several different structures. At the moment, what I've done like on a debt base. So investors would invest money solely just to get a return on their money. Like you said, they don't want to have the headache of owning a property, dealing with tenants. They just trust that, okay, Alfred knows what he's doing. He's developing projects and he needs X amount of capital. We have to borrow him this capital, and what's in it for us is we get a 6 to 10% return per annum on our money. And it's like whether it's paid monthly, paid at the end. There's other structures as well, whereby joint venture partnerships, whereby the investor brings all the capital into the deal. The developer goes away and develops the deal. And if you're going to retain it or sell it, profits are split 50-50, for example, or however best you want to negotiate the deal from that point of view with the investor. So it's all in. And then the final one, I think, is obviously probably more common in the multifamily. So I've actually been to America quite a few times and quite interested in the multifamily sector. So a lot of people creating funds where investors can put money into this fund. The fund goes away and acquires a 100-unit building, 200-unit building or estate, and they have an equity piece. And obviously the promises over that time of the fund, 5 to 10 years, we might 2x, 3x your money in that time frame. And obviously, while you wait as well, you're getting a return. It's usually a low return, but the bigger players, we 2x, we 3x the money over the fund cycle. So that's an interesting model as well.
Absolutely. So there's more than one way to be engaged in the real estate investment space. You don't have to be a homeowner on the front end. You can actually invest in not only residential property, but in commercial property. Or, I mean, there's so many. Now it's like here in Calgary, they're saying that it's like every apartment renter has a storage locker now. That's real estate. So there's so many options and opportunities out there for sure. What is the why real estate in general versus, you went to school, you've got this really cool degree in engineering and aerospace. What is it? Why does real estate appeal to you?
I actually always say, look, real estate is probably the most marketed thing outside of corporate world. So everyone gravitates towards real estate because that's the first thing they know coming outside the corporate world. So even the reason why I kind of explored that when I was working, because I always had the ambition to kind of own properties and kind of had it as like a retirement vehicle. I didn't really think of it as a business. I just thought I'd work, maybe every year I buy a house, and then by the time I finish, I've got a few houses, I'm bringing in money monthly. And actually what made me kind of narrow down and go into a bit more was I wanted to earn, I basically got to a point where I wanted to earn 6 figures plus, like 200, 300 grand a year. And so upon searching my career and what it meant to actually earn that kind of money, there was too many years required in terms of experience. I had to have gone to different companies, moved around a bit to become a senior project manager, to start commanding. And even you're going to struggle to see 200 grand, 300 grand in those roles in that engineering space for sure. So that's what drove me to look outside of the corporate world and say, look, what can I do to learn about real estate now and start building a portfolio now, which brings me income and will supersede that earning potential, basically. So that's what drove me in. And obviously as well, going into researching what wealth people have in terms of how they build their wealth. Real estate is pretty much part of everybody's portfolio out there.
Yeah, real estate's one of the globally top searched
there you go.
Topics out there for sure. What does community mean to you? So you are in the industry of creating community, but what does community mean to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've been thinking about, like, what does community mean to me? I think community it can mean a lot of things. I guess for me, it's an ecosystem. It's something whereby people can kind of support each other. I think a community is something that if I was part of a community, I'd want to have that kind of support network around me where we can kind of learn off each other, create opportunities together. I think it's for me, to put it simple, community is something that allows for growth opportunity, is the way I see it. For me, a community needs to be something that we all come together and do things together, grow together, help one another out. That's what I would kind of put against the word community.
Amazing. And you're building community. That's what you're in. We all look at real estate, but real estate is actually the physical embodiment of different communities. So it's a real blessing and opportunity, honor to be able to be in real estate. That's for sure. What's a book that you've read that you really thought was kind of an aha book in and around real estate, community, property development, anything along those lines?
Yeah, I think there's several. So I'm trying to think when I first what was the first ever book? First ever book because it wasn't real estate, but obviously there's a Richard Poor Dad thing that obviously that's kind of the go-to book when you're kind of starting out and kind of branching out of the corporate world, looking for something else. So I guess that's something, but I think more specific, obviously I'm based in the UK. So there was a book that I read a while back, which was Multiple Streams of Property Income by Kevin McDonald and Rob Moore. And that was just like an insight into the different strategies you can do in the real estate market. So obviously that was me like first coming across real estate, what investment opportunities, what investment strategies are there in real estate. And that book kind of mapped it out for me in terms of what the strategies are. So for me, that's a book I would say anybody wanting to kind of start or get an idea of what's possible in real estate, that's a book you want to read.
Excellent. And we'll have that, just so you know, folks, we'll have that in our comments on this podcast. When we post, we're going to have all this information so you can go and check out that book yourself. You know, because it's all about, like you said, in your bio, Alfred, it's about leaning into mentorship and constantly learning and leveling up. And this is the beauty of the age of knowledge, folks, is that we all have opportunities to be that, just that little bit better, Where can they find you, Alfred? If somebody wanted to tap in or follow you on your Instagram or TikTok, where can they find you?
Literally type my name, Alfred Dzadey. I know Dzadey doesn't sound like it's spelled the way it's supposed to spell, but it's Dzadey. Just any platform, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, you find me, just my name. Even typing in Google will come up with all my socials. Yeah,
Google.
You can Google me.
You know that you're doing something. You're making waves. Things that we've talked about today, guys, is, network to your net worth. Get out there, talk to people. Lean into your mentorship groups. Get that extra, read that extra book. Find solutions to the challenges that are facing your community. And reach out and ask people for their insight, their information. That's what we're here for on the 500 Doors, is to gather all these stories of people who are solution oriented and are making shelter one of their priorities. Maybe food, shelter, education, and medication. Got to tackle something. And I am glad that you're tackling Alfred, I'm glad that you're tackling the shelter situation and finding cost-effective ways for people to live, and because that's so critical. There's nothing worse than feeling like you don't have a place to go.
100%.
So when do you do your Insta Lives, your Q&As? When can we find you on that?
You know what? I've done it on a random basis. So because I like to I always felt like the random ones are the best ones when it's not planned, just one evening. Normally they're in the evenings, to put it simple. They're usually in the evenings, anywhere between 6 and 8 p.m. on my Instagram, but they're just random. So, and it's great engagement. People come on there, ask questions, we interact. I bring someone onto the live, ask them a question on there. They ask me a question on there. So it's good fun.
Okay, so if you're out there and you are thinking, I want to do my own project, I want to convert an empty office space, I want to maybe build something that my kids and everybody can be part of, you know what? Go find Alfred on Instagram, because that 6 to 8 p.m. in England is lunchtime here. And I can't think of a better way to feed yourself than with great information from Alfred. Sounds like this guy's got it dialed in and he's creative. You are so creative, Alfred. When that's what we need, is more creativity around our shelter situation as the world continues. The world's crazy. Come on, let's face it, folks. You probably got just the people come on my show are the sanity within the crazy. So, Alfred, close us out with a quote, something that has meant something to you over your lifetime and has helped you even when the times are tough.
Yeah, so this is actually something I do when I present. I do these talks and stuff sometimes, and I always start with the slide. So it's a quote by a guy named Ryan Blair, And it goes by, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. If it's not, you'll find an excuse. For me, that's powerful, because if we look at any area of your life where you've done something, generally speaking, when you do your commit, it's because it's important to you. So you've done it. And if it wasn't, you just come up with an excuse why you couldn't do it. So I literally live by that.
That is awesome. That is a great quote. And a lot of us find excuses. A lot of us run around, go, why me? Why me? Folks, today I want you to put the word not in there. Why not me? Why not me? Don't make excuses. Make things happen. Alfred, any closing words? How do you feel? All good?
No, I feel great. I feel great. I think everyone out there who's obviously thinking to get into real estate, I think the main thing is get educated. That's what I did. I didn't go in blind, anything I could figure out myself. There's also a lot of resource online and stuff, but what accelerates it is being part of a community you can learn from, having mentors around you, having people that are actually doing or actively doing the things that you want to do, and surround yourself with them. So for me, yeah, get yourself in the right rooms, and the rest will figure itself out pretty much.
The rest can happen, folks. It will happen. Again, you know what, Alfred, thank you so much for your time today. Everybody out there, be sure to check out the 500 Doors Facebook group. We have a free Facebook group. That's where this episode each Thursday live streams. And, you know, we can have some discussion afterwards. If you want to pop in any questions, we'll have discussions there. So do go check out our Facebook group there and join our community on Facebook for the 500 Doors, where we really talk about socially responsible real estate. The development, the procurement, the investment, you know, it could be the designing of it, but really it's about taking a socially responsible step in there and ensuring that people they have the ability for food, shelter, medication, education. We're talking about shelter. Okay. So until next time, folks, I'm Kim Hayden, your host here at 500 Doors. And I am just grateful that you spent a little bit of your time with us today.